Katt Williams was right yet again. And once again, he managed to stay one step ahead of the system by calling out celebrities who, according to critics, have been playing in everyone's face for years. Now that the Epstein files are public, many believe we're finally seeing which high-profile figures could be facing real consequences, including some names fans swore were completely innocent and incapable of wrongdoing. Katt Williams undeniably cracked the door wide open to Hollywood's hidden side during his appearance on Club Shay Shay, and judging by recent developments, he doesn't look like he's backing off anytime soon. When the Epstein files first dropped, a lot of people were deep in denial, mainly because they didn't want to accept that some of their favorite celebrities might be just as compromised as the politicians we've been side-eyeing for years. Take Jay-Z, for example. His name surfaced in the files after an anonymous accuser reportedly mentioned him. Almost immediately, fans rushed to his defense, arguing there was no way he could have been involved because the alleged incident dates back to 1996, a time when he was still at the very beginning of his rap career. According to the accusation, the individual claimed she woke up in a room with Harvey Weinstein and Jay-Z, describing inappropriate behavior allegedly carried out by Weinstein. While suggesting the situation was facilitated by Pusha, supporters continue to argue that Jay-Z was far too new to the industry to be connected to elite circles like this, but critics say that narrative doesn't tell the full story. Yes, he was a new rapper in 1996, but that doesn't automatically mean he lacked powerful industry connections. Those are two completely different things. In fact, some point out that even early in his career, Jay-Z appeared to be moving very strategically, and videos from that era show him alongside Weinstein, with some observers claiming the dynamic looked less like chance and more like influence or control.
I know you'll caught that.
Go back and watch it again, then tell me it didn't look like Jay-Z was being closely guided, or some would say managed, by Harvey Weinstein. Seriously, run it back and see for yourself. And just when people thought it couldn't get any worse, multiple videos and photos allegedly leaked showing Jay-Z at two highly controversial parties. One of those clips is so explicit that it can't be shared here, but it's reportedly circulating on Twitter, for anyone who's determined enough to look it up. That same video allegedly shows Jay-Z in a private room with another man while two adult entertainers were reportedly performing in a suggestive manner for their amusement. Then there's a second batch of receipts, photos of Jay-Z standing alongside Harvey Weinstein at Diddy's 29th birthday party. And as if that wasn't enough, an old clip of Kanye West calling out Jay-Z and Pusha T back in 2018 has suddenly resurfaced, with many viewers saying that what Kanye said back then seems to hit even harder today. And then there's one comedian turned whistleblower who didn't hold back at all, going as far as accusing not only Jay-Z but also Beyoncé of allegedly being involved in disturbing ritual-style sacrifices, claims that immediately sent shockwaves across the internet. But they weren't the only high-profile names tied to the situation. Like I said earlier, Katt Williams had already called out a long list of celebrities, and now many believe the newly released files are lining up with a lot of what he's been saying all along. One name that immediately stood out was Naomi Campbell, and as expected, the internet wasted no time dragging her non-stop. According to the documents, Naomi Campbell reportedly took 5 separate flights on the infamous Lolita Express between 2001 and 2003. 2 of those flights allegedly originated in the U.S. Virgin Islands, where Jeffrey Epstein owned his private island, a location that has since become synonymous with excess and alleged misconduct. Other flights reportedly traveled to the Sao Paulo, Brazil region, raising even more questions about the nature of those trips. The files also reportedly contain multiple emails that seem to hint at Naomi Campbell and Jeffrey Epstein allegedly coordinating how to move certain records into the country ahead of his now infamous parties. Some of those messages were interpreted by online investigators as back-and-forth discussions suggesting how she was allegedly expected to entertain him. Around the same time, several older videos of Naomi Campbell recruiting young models suddenly went viral again. And according to what the streets are saying, this so-called model recruitment may have allegedly been a front to bring more women into proximity with powerful industry figures. So the big question people keep asking is, what was in it for her? Critics claim the answer is simple: money and funding. The narrative online suggests that when you introduce models or people who are easily influenced into elite circles, financial backing follows. That's why many keep questioning how a supermodel was able to amass enough wealth to reportedly own an island. Yes, people keep repeating it. She allegedly owns an island. And while none of this is proven, many say once you start slowly connecting the dots, it forces you to see things from an entirely different angle. Either way, it definitely opens your eyes. But let's move on. Do you all remember when Bill Gates was asked on national television whether he regretted his association with Jeffrey Epstein? The interviewer directly pressed him about maintaining that relationship despite Melinda Gates' objections. Bill Gates responded by saying he'd already addressed it countless times, admitting he shouldn't have had dinners with Epstein and adding that Epstein had a way of compromising people, a statement that, in hindsight, has taken on a whole new meaning for many viewers. When the interviewer followed up and asked if that was what Melinda Gates had been warning him about, Bill Gates quickly brushed it off, insisting that he only ever had dinner with Jeffrey Epstein and nothing more. But according to many observers, the files paint a very different picture. The documents suggest that Bill Gates and Epstein were far closer than he admitted, with claims that Gates was a frequent presence around Epstein's inner circle and allegedly visited the island on more than one occasion. One email that really set the internet on fire allegedly shows Bill Gates asking Epstein for antibiotics to give Melinda without her knowing, claiming he had picked up an STD from women he met overseas. Fast forward to 2021, and Melinda Gates filed for divorce, walking away with more than $29.6 billion. In later interviews, Melinda described the situation as deeply painful, saying the sadness was overwhelming and that learning about her husband's continued interactions with Epstein was something she simply couldn't accept. She made it clear she strongly objected to those meetings and even stated that she met Epstein only once, immediately regretting it and describing him as disturbing and deeply unsettling. Then there's Chris Tucker, whose name also surfaced in the Epstein documents and flight logs. According to those records, he was allegedly on Epstein's private jet back in 2002, the same aircraft used for trips to the infamous island. Chris Tucker and his team attempted damage control by claiming the flight was part of a humanitarian mission to Africa focused on AIDS awareness and charity, alongside former President Bill Clinton and actor. But a lot of people weren't buying that explanation, especially since recent leaked photos showed Bill Clinton inside Epstein's mansion looking far too comfortable for comfort. Critics point out that Chris Tucker was surrounded by these powerful figures during the height of everything that was allegedly happening, yet he wants people to believe he had no idea what was going on. And when he was directly questioned about his connection to Epstein, many noticed how visibly nervous he appeared, stumbling over his words and trying hard to downplay the situation. During one interview, he admitted he knew Epstein, explaining that it was Epstein's plane and insisting he didn't even know whose jet it was at the time. But when pressed further about the aircraft, identified as the Lolita Express, and asked whether he ever went to the island, Chris Tucker repeatedly denied it, leaving many viewers unconvinced.
No.
I don't even know where that came from. And that's exactly why so many people weren't buying the whole humanitarian mission explanation Chris Tucker was pushing. Especially because long before any of this hit the mainstream, Katt Williams had already accused Chris Tucker of being way too close to Jeffrey Epstein, and back then, people brushed it off, claiming Katt was just being jealous or bitter.
Turns out, Katt Williams may have simply been ahead of his time.
Back in January 2024, when he appeared on Shannon Sharpe's Club Shay Shay podcast, Katt brought Chris Tucker up while discussing the possibility of another Friday movie. He said the version of Chris we see today isn't the same person he once knew, adding that if he didn't have insider knowledge, he'd probably be one of the people who thought Chris Tucker was a genuinely good guy. Then Katt dropped the line that set the internet on fire, saying the Chris Tucker we have now is Epstein Island Chris Tucker, not the Smokey fans grew up loving. He went on to talk about confidence versus delusion, saying true confidence is rare, and a lot of what people mistake for confidence is really just delusion. The conversation then shifted to Friday, with Katt explaining that while everyone agrees there's no Friday without Smokey, Chris Tucker was ultimately allowed to make his own decisions. At the time, Katt Williams was known for openly smoking weed, just like Willie Nelson and Snoop Dogg, but Chris Tucker didn't want to be associated with that image. According to Katt, Chris wanted to keep a clean, church-going persona, highlighting his close friendship with Michael Jackson, who even reportedly gave him the nickname Christmas. Katt joked that most people have never even met someone important enough to give them a nickname like that. And just when it seemed like Katt Williams was done calling out questionable celebrities, he went even further, dropping serious tea about Ashton Kutcher and Nick Cannon as well. When it comes to Ashton Kutcher, many people weren't shocked at all. Over the years, he's developed a reputation for being connected to nearly every infamous industry figure you can name. He's been surrounded by controversy after controversy, from allegedly pursuing very young women, to being linked to crime scenes, to claims that he financially supported questionable operations, to showing up at nearly every Diddy party. Online critics argue that trouble seems to follow him everywhere. Some have even alleged that the anti-CT organization Ashton Kutcher helped launch in 2009 was actually a front, supposedly allowing him and his associates to continue shady behavior without attracting too much attention from authorities. And people haven't forgotten that as recently as 2023, Ashton went out of his way to support his longtime friend Danny Masterson, writing character reference letters to the judge despite the serious charges Danny Masterson was facing. In those letters, Ashton reportedly described Danny as a role model, a devoted husband, and a respectful individual. He likely never expected those letters to leak, but once they did, many people say it completely changed how they viewed Ashton Kutcher. Now, when it comes to Nick Cannon, his name wasn't directly tied to Epstein Island, but he still had plenty to say about the entire situation. In fact, Nick Cannon openly sided with Katt Williams, agreeing with much of what he's been saying. Nick admitted that, like a lot of people, he initially believed the stories surrounding these billionaires sounded way too extreme to be real. But with everything that's come out since, Nick Cannon has said he's no longer ruling anything out when it comes to powerful elites, even some of the most disturbing allegations floating around online. And here's where things get even more controversial. There's been heavy speculation online suggesting that Nick Cannon's decision to have so many children with multiple women could allegedly be tied to something far deeper, something ritualistic that people claim he doesn't want the public to question. If that were true, critics say it would be straight-up Babylon. Nick himself has implied that he avoids speaking too deeply on certain topics because he knows how wild it can sound to the average person, especially when conspiracy labels start getting thrown around. He's even referenced how, in the past, people would have laughed off stories like Epstein, saying there's no way billionaires could be involved in something that dark, until it turned out they were. Some online commentators have gone as far as claiming that individuals connected to elite circles, including people tied to child protection systems, were allegedly involved in deeply disturbing activities. While those claims remain unproven, the fact that they are being discussed at all shows just how shaken public trust has become. As usual, the internet had a lot to say. One commenter wrote, "The scariest part of the Epstein files isn't the names, it's how many powerful people are still completely untouchable." Another added, "It's funny how celebrities are outspoken about every issue except the Epstein files."
But now I want to hear from you.
What do you think about Katt Williams allegedly calling out celebrities connected to the Epstein files? And do you honestly believe any of these people will ever see a prison cell? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. White down pointing backhand index.
And don't forget to click here to check out this other messy video.